We're streaming. Easy enough. So, now that you all speak my language, I can show you all the fun things we can do. So, I've turned on my computer. Let's go to it. So I'm going to go and create a directory. For some of you, y'all have been confusing yourselves and making it so much more difficult because you haven't started with this first step, and we haven't done a good job of saying this is what you need to do. So step one, I'm going to go and create a folder. So it's going to say Bootstrap Play. Why did I use an underscore, by the way? Why did developers not like spaces?
Because it can mean things in the code when you reference a file.
It could, or what's another reason developers don't like spaces? Remember, developers are lazy. Because you have to put double quotes or something around it to say that's the whole name. So it's often the case.
I was a student again.
So we connect it. Either we use camel case or something else. So step one is I create a folder. Step two is I'm going to open that folder in my favorite text editor. So when you open Sublime, and I don't know if Adam does this or not, it remembers the last thing you opened. And I don't really like that feature, and I'm sure I can turn it off. I've just been too lazy to go find how to turn it off. So I open up Sublime, and then I say, OK, let me go find that folder I've just created. Bootstrap Play. Select it. OK, nothing here. No tricks, nothing up my sleeves. Let's go and step one is a good practice that Harper showed everyone this morning. He showed us that we should probably have subdirectories to keep all our CSS and all our JavaScript files separate. The only reason we have subdirectories is to keep them organized, because after you have more than one or two JavaScript or CSS files, it's kind of messy to see like 10 files in your root directory and you don't know what you're looking at. It's nice just to have your application, your code, in the root directory. All the other things that somebody else wrote, kind of stash them away somewhere. It's just organization. So next what I do is I create the directory structure. Let's create, there are multiple ways to do this. There's no right way. You can go to Windows Explorer and create a folder. You can right-click inside of your editor and say new folder, however you want to do it. But the point is, it's a good practice to create one. It doesn't really matter what you name your folders. For instance, I've seen scripts, I've seen assets, I've seen CSS, I've seen style sheets. As long as you can tell what it means, and I don't like to type, so JS is good with me for JavaScript. And you usually want to keep your JavaScript separate from your CSS. So let's go create a CSS. I chose CSS rather than style sheets because it's a lot shorter to type. Remember, I'm lazy. So now I've got folders. I've got no files yet. I'm going to create a new file. Right-click, new file. And I'm going to save it with nothing in it. And this is going to be, I can name it whatever I like. Okay? Now, let's go pull in some of our dependencies. This is at the point at which you kind of need to think about what is it we're doing here. We need to, could you go help them with, looks like there's strings. So the next step is, let's go copy and paste, and this is, it's not rocket science, it's just copy and pasting files. You can either download the files from the internet, and Harper showed us how to do that this morning, and actually I'm going to have to go do that myself because I don't have Bootstrap 4 files on my computer. So how do I do that? Well, Bootstrap is so popular. I'm just going to type that directly into my browser window. That's 4.0. Let's try this one. 4.1 download.
Do you have to download Bootstrap, or can you link to it?
That's what Harper was talking about this morning with the CDN, Content Delivery Network. I don't like introducing possible single points of failure from other people. If my code fails, I want it to be my fault. So that's just me. So I like to get the files, put it in my folder. So if it fails, and it will, it'll be my fault. I can't point the finger at anybody else. So I like to download it, copy and paste what I need, put it into my folders. And this is exactly what we're doing right here. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. So the question was, can we just use a link to somewhere else on the internet that has it? Well, what happens if the internet connectivity between that content delivery network site and your server is down? your whole site fails. And it has nothing to do with the code you wrote. And I don't like that scenario. Call me paranoid. So there's this huge list of files. Why did they give us all these files? Just to confuse us? No. They're trying to be verbose. This is open source. They're saying, you know, if you're one of us, if you're one of the cool designer people that really make the world a better place, here are all the source codes so we can impress you, number one, and so that you can contribute and help us make it better, too. I'm not a designer, so what I'm going to do as a developer is I'm going to go find the 1 or 2 files I need, and I'm going to copy and paste them. That's all we're doing here. And I'm going to have to poke around and figure out where it is. Probably in dist and bootstrap. I should have paid attention this morning when Harper did it. So this is each of the individual files since we're in here. What they do is, in that bootstrap min, if we open this up, it's inside a zip, so it's not going to let me open it with the text editor.
If you go up to, and then instead of JS go into dist right there. Yeah.
Dist. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Baum. So inside of here, which one? There's still like 10, 12 files in here. Well, we could look at this one. If you're ever curious, for instance, somebody asked the question, what does that container class do? And you know, I'm inside a zip file. Don't worry about what I'm doing here. I'm going to open up another folder, and I'm going to unzip that real quick just so we can look at it. Just to take a peek. This is the unminified version. So this is all of their nasty guts. This is the inside of the black box. I don't really care what's going on in here. I just like the magic that it gives me. But just out of curiosity, I'm going to search for .container. There it is. So there's nothing magic. This is CSS. Okay, that's the default styling. You can't read the minified. Don't try it. That's why they give you the CSS that's unminified. This is the normal human readable form. Just if you're curious. Now we don't want that. We want the minified. Why do we want the minified?
Save space.
Save space. This is completely unreadable, but that's all right because we don't care what's inside this black box. Open it up. It's all on one enormous line. Look at that. All of it. Completely unreadable. I couldn't make sense of that if I tried. So there it is. We've got our CSS file. We're also going to do JavaScript because Bootstrap isn't just CSS. It also has the behaviors. So let's go over here to dist, JS, and once again, lots and lots of files. If you want to see their JavaScript, all the details, I can pull it over there and I can open it up. You should be afraid, very afraid. Okay? What is all that craziness? You know, I can kind of read that though, and you can too. We know what a for loop is. What is that? That's an array. That's not equal. This is shortcut to say if else. So if that is true, do that. Else, do that. Declaring a variable called source, put it all into there. You know, that's enough of that. That's their code, not our problem. So let's go get the minified version. Drag it over there. So now, what have we got? Let's go back to our text editor. And we've got our files. That's not going to work by itself because Bootstrap requires jQuery. So we have to go one more place, and I'm going to steal from yesterday. Let's see, day 6 is probably it. Scripts. There we go. So I'm just going to go, you see what I'm doing? I'm just going and finding the files I need, and I'm copying and pasting them using Windows Explorer into my target folder. That is step 1. So I'm going to throw it into my JS folder. Why? Because this is a JavaScript file. Now I'm good. Okay? So now let's go look at and see what I've got. I've got 2 JavaScript files and I've got a CSS file. We did that because those are libraries. You know, while we're at it, let's go learn a new library. Toaster. I think I mentioned this to you briefly. So we know how to use libraries. How do you do it? What is the process? Let me see how complicated I can put this to make it sound good in an interview. I can adeptly incorporate world-class libraries into my custom developed project. That means I'm going to download a file and I'm going to put it in a folder. In this case, I'm going to download 2 because they have CSS and they have JavaScript. And now you know, okay, JavaScript is going to be behaviors. They're going to do some jQuery and they're going to attach some events and they're going to do it for me. And they're going to have CSS, which is going to make it pretty. That's all they're going to do. So, let's see. Yep. So let's put it in that same folder. Bootstrap play. This is the CSS file. So throw it into CSS, save, and throw the JavaScript in this JavaScript file. It's JavaScript directory. Save. Okay. Done for now. We'll come back and we'll figure out how to use that in a minute. So we've got a bunch of little libraries. We've got no HTML. Let's fix that. I'm not going to walk through this again because we've done it like 10 times now, and even y'all are probably getting tired of it. What do you know? Sublime, help me out. Okay? And we need to incorporate all of these little files over here. We need to tell our HTML page, oh, I want you to load this. It's not automatic because we put it in the same directory or subdirectory. So, script type src. This is one of those tags that I copy and paste myself. Now, tell me the path from our HTML file to our JavaScript file, the Bootstrap. Well, actually, we need jQuery because Bootstrap uses jQuery. So how do we tell this line of code what the path is to our jQuery file? Yep, it's that one. What directory is it in? Remember relative path, relative. So I'm looking down one directory. What's the name of the directory?
JS.
JS. There we go. Okay. We're going to do that same thing. Speed it up a little bit. Bootstrap min. And let's do CSS. Actually, while we're at it, let's do Toaster. Okay? So we got our JS. Now, it would work right now, but it's going to be horribly ugly because all of 3 of these expect to have their nice little pretty CSS. So without the CSS, it'll work, but actually, I had this problem the other day. I was using Toaster or jgrowl, which does something very, very similar, and it's supposed to pop up and give you a little message. And I forgot to include my CSS file. So it was working, but it didn't pop up at all. It was at the very bottom of the screen, and it had this black and white text down the bottom. And the only thing it was missing was the JS file. So, and there was no, is that a syntax, logic, or runtime error?
Logic?
Logic error, yeah. It's like, computer's fine. It was doing what it was told to do. The logic error is like, it's a programmer's logic problem. It wasn't a runtime error because it didn't throw anything. It wasn't syntax because it was syntactically fine. Just the classes were missing. So, getting back to this, what is it? Link. Now we got to have our CSS included. Rel style sheet. Someday I'm going to learn what that means. href. I don't know why it's not just source. And once again, we have a path. css/bootstrap.min.css. Now, if you mistype one of these characters, does the browser care?
Yes.
Yeah, it cares. Why does it care? It's going to say, if you look in your Chrome debugger window, it's going to say, file not found. And it's going to go on. It's like, okay, I guess you didn't really need that file after all. And nothing's going to look the way you think it should look. So, it's very important to spell it properly. And we're going to use Toaster. There's no CSS for jQuery. So, we've got all our references. We haven't written a bit of code. All we've done is we've referenced other people's code. Now let's have some fun. So, script type is equal to text/JavaScript. And this is where we're going to write our code. I'm just putting a placeholder there, though. And let's make a div pretty. Harper taught us this morning that it's very important to have a container for Bootstrap. So we've learned the very basic structure of an HTML page, which is what you're looking at here. Now with Bootstrap, you have this other layer of, oh, we need you to do these other special little divs, and you can add classes and make things look really pretty. So let's do that. How do we put a container? There are two flavors. Help me out. What are they?
There's the fixed.
One is like fixed width, and the other kind of takes up the whole screen. So what are the names of the two classes? There are only two. And these are the kind of things you do after time you need to get used to using them. Container. They just call it container. Now that one is going to be the fixed width or the one that kind of...
Fixed.
It's the fixed. Okay. So we'll just do that one for now. All we have to do is fluid if we want to make it take up the whole screen. Now, inside of there, we learned about the grid layout. And that, I think Harper was covering so much information this morning, he might have glossed that over because he's teaching about, okay, this is the 10 different ways to do that because he's going through the documentation. Very basic. It's a grid. It's like a big table. And it's not just for data. It's for the layout of the whole page. So let's create, and it's all divs. That's the way they like to do it. So I'm going to create another div, and this is going to have a class of row. And inside of that row, we're going to have columns. So let's have, y'all tell me what you want to see. How many columns do we want?
3.
3 columns. Let's not make them equally spaced, though. Let's make the first one small, the next one a little bit bigger, and then make the other one small again. Tell me how to do that. What are the dimensions in Bootstrap? It expects everything to be in units of 12. So imagine 12 equally partitioned columns on the screen.
Like 3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5. Got it. So how do we tell it? We want 3 columns. The first one's going to be 3 12s, 4 12s, 5 12s. We're missing one, aren't we? Div, okay. Class.
4 plus 3, 12.
3, 4, 5, yeah.
Very good.
You don't need math for computer science.
I can't hear you. Let's actually talk about that because he talked about that very briefly. So if I say call XS, extra small, or SM, what we're really saying is I want this class to apply on devices that are that wide, that big. The small is the default for the big. So if you design for the smallest, everything else inherits that unless, and that was my kind of please cover that Harper question this morning. You can say, if you're large, I want this layout to look different. If you say call SM, I think Kirsty said 3, 4, 5. So let's do that first. So small, 3, 4, 5. So I'm saying 3 12s, 4 12s, 5 12s. There's nothing in them, so we're not going to be able to see it, probably. But if I wanted to say, if you're on a large screen, I don't really want to have these dimensions. You could tell it, call LG 6, or call LG 2. What does that mean? That means if you're on a large screen or larger, then I want you to have different width. I want you to have different behaviors. These are conditionally applied based on the size of the device. There's a question back there, I think.
Well, first of all, you need a meta tag with the viewport at the top, right, to make it responsive.
Thank you. What Chris is pointing out is like I forgot a step, and let's see. Let's go find that so I can copy it. So getting started, and there's a thing right at the top that says, oh, by the way, I want to be responsive. So that one's important. Thank you. So I'm going to throw that up here. That's good. What else we got?
Well, so also typically you would do like small, medium, and large, right? And that would make it responsive for whatever size screen. Like if you're going from a desktop to a tablet to a phone.
Yeah, he's saying that there is actually an extra small with Bootstrap 4. There's small, there's medium, there's large, and then there's extra large, I think. They made a lot more options. And the way it works is, if you design for the smallest possible, XS, or I think if you leave this off, it's the default. It means design for the smallest. Apply that to all of them. So that's usually because developers are lazy, unless you're getting into, really, let's think about the people who have enormous monitors and high resolution. Developers don't think like that. They're worried about getting their application working, period. So usually you have one of these, and you decide how you want it to look for all screen formats. And then the designers come back to you, or the users come back to you, it's like, oh, it looks horrible on my tablet. It's like, okay, let me go design something specifically for your tablet. And how do you do that? You go back and add more classes. Like, if you're this size, we're going to do something a little bit different. Question?
You also have a library, I think, at media. So for a specific screen resolution, like you set a minimum width or a maximum width for that resolution of a laptop or a small phone or whatever. And then you do CSS again for that specific laptop. So like if someone came back to you and said that for a tablet, you just do it for that resolution.
That was, yeah, Mudit's pointing out something. Y'all are getting into, let's override Bootstrap because Bootstrap's not good enough. I don't know about y'all, but Bootstrap's good enough for me. You know, I'm going to take their defaults. They've got who knows how many thousands of man hours into this stuff, and they're professionals. If y'all want to override it, you're a better man than I. It is possible. I think somebody in Richmond asked the same question. More power to you.
You do need to do it sometimes.
So now, we haven't written any code yet, and we haven't made anything pretty. What we've done is we've done some layout. So we got 3, 4, 5. And do our normal CSS tags still work here? Can we still do a style tag? Yeah. We haven't lost anything. We just gained a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to make this middle one. Let's do it the Bootstrap way. So if I want to make this middle one, what is it? Let's go look it up, because Bootstrap 4 is something I'm not very familiar with. I'm going to make this middle one a background of green with green text. I think it's like text success, probably. Something like that. Let's find out. I haven't written a bit of JavaScript code. Now, how do we go and see if it worked? I'm going to go over here, find my file, and I'm going to open it. I guessed wrong. It's not text success. So, is it working now? How do we tell if it's working or not? Let's look at our code. Container, row, yep. There's nothing in there. And it might be collapsed. It might just be because we don't have any text in there. So this is, let's put some text in there. Oh, it does work. It's just we didn't have any text. So it's slightly green. I don't know if you can see that on the monitor. So that's not exciting at all. Let's do something a little bit more fun. And this is what Harper was conveying this morning. This documentation site is some of the best you'll ever find. So how do you go find, I covered everything in layout just there. He spent time going through all the documentation because it's important you understand the rows and the columns. But the very basic, you need to understand. If you want to have rows and columns, we could make this 2 instead of 3. How do I do that? Chop that off. If I want to make them, let's say, a third and the rest, let's do that. Okay? You see that's the rest, and that's a third. So you can lay things out however you want. Now, I think it was kind of lost on you in why we do this. This is how you lay out your entire site. It's not just for this, I want my button to be exactly there. This is, I want 2 panels on this page. And when I do something with a form on this side, and I click a button, I'm going to completely replace the contents of this div with data. Think about that. Think about putting it all together. I'm going to use the jQuery UI. As a matter of fact, let's go do that. Let's use that little Node.js Empower thing. Who voted for what? Okay. So we have a new little API call, and it has some more data. So I want to read this, and it's a simple, what type of HTTP verb is that? It's a get. It has to be a get because it's on the URL line. So I'm going to take that, and who can walk me through? Remember, we have jQuery in here. Who can walk me through that when I click a nice pretty button in our first column, we're going to load the data into our second column. So how do you, HTML?
You do an input?
Sure, we can do an input. We want to make it pretty though. So, and how do we make it pretty? What's the color we want for our button? Start visualizing, start being creative, because now you have all the tools.
Success.
Success. Success. What color is success going to be?
Green.
Green. Okay. So how do we tell it to be success? Let me know when you're back.
We're back.
Okay. So, btn hyphen success. What do we want to have on this button? What we're going to do is show me who voted for what. Who voted for Pokemon? Okay. How do we talk about that button in jQuery? We could. Let's go up here. Well, we have to start writing some jQuery. This is where, okay, let's put it all together. Do we just start writing jQuery, or do we have to say document already? Excellent, Anna. Why are we doing this document.ready thing again? Yes. This is how the page tells us, jQuery tells us it's ready for it to run our code. If we did it beforehand, it may not work because the page may not be there for us to interact with. So, inside of here, we get to write whatever code we want. What do we want to have happen? When we click on this button, we want to load some data from that API using AJAX. So how do we do the button click event thing? We skipped a step, I think. We need to make it so that this button, when you click on it, runs some code. And jQuery likes to know how to talk about the button. So how do we need to give it an identifier or a class or something, right? Just to throw you off. What does that say? When any button is clicked. So it works fine now because I have one button. But if I had another button, they would all do exactly the same thing. So that's probably not going to work very well. Let's give it an ID. Question?
Yes. Could you have your first function say, like, all buttons dot click do this, and then functions after that keying specific ID buttons? So what I mean by that, say you have 10 buttons, 2 of them have IDs.
You want to override behaviors?
Yes. So say all buttons will do this, and then have 2 other buttons with IDs that you can identify and do other things.
No. What will happen, here's what would happen. Actually, let's guess. So he's saying, what if you had 2 buttons like this? And we're actually going to do that in a minute, maybe, if y'all want. And let's make it a different color. By the way, what's blue, dark blue? Primary. So, what you're saying is, let's do this. Let's make it so that any button does XYZ, whatever we want, and PQR. Okay. So, I haven't written any behaviors, but we're talking about theoretically. If I left it like this, we don't have to do theoretical. We're coders. As a matter of fact, console.log. Clicked a button. Clicked. Who voted for what? So if I do that, let's take a close look at what's going on, because I did that quick. So this says any button in the page, which is going to match both of these buttons, and it's going to attach that. This says who voted for what, which is this specific button. So if I click this button, let's go find out. This is going to be a lesson to you about how to resolve some very tricky bugs. So let's go take a look at our console. Tally, please, says clicked button. Let's go back over and look at the code. Tally, please, that's that one. So that's just that. So it did what we're supposed to do. Now this one is the confusing one. This one is a button, but it's also that ID. It did both of them. You can attach multiple event handlers. It will run them all. It doesn't override.
Cool.
Good and bad. It's good if it does what you want. It's bad if that's not what you want.
So we talked yesterday about branching and using, I forget what the exact function was. It was set timeout, I think. That makes it so it does two different things at the same time. Asynchronous.
Two threads of execution.
Yes. Is this like doing that just manually?
Not exactly. So the question is this an example of multiple threads of execution? No. This is when we attached the click events up here, and we said button click and who voted for what, jQuery isn't magic either. What we have going on is, in the background, jQuery knows when that was clicked on, I need to go run some code. So it is actually calling back. It's going to call your function one after another. It's the same one thread of execution. It just knows to do both of them. It looks like it's the same time, but actually one of them happened a millisecond before.
Gotcha.
It's not the same time. So, getting back to, let's do some Bootstrap stuff. So show me the tally. We've made it pretty. Well, as pretty as a developer can make things. And you've got that going on. Now what we want to have is, let's replace the contents of that column with, we haven't seen a table. All right, maybe you've played with it so far, but let's actually put a table over here instead of this second column. And let's do a Bootstrap table, which looks a whole lot better than our normal table. How do you say Bootstrap table? Table. And table condensed, table striped. Now we're making things pretty. I'm not going to bore you with the stuff you already know. I'm trying to get to the good stuff, which is why I'm going fast. So this is what we're trying to do here is we're going to query our new API method, which is this. Okay. And we're going to get this data back. And this is an array of objects. Array object because it has the little curly brace there. And inside of there we have two properties, API name and voter name. Okay? So we know who voted for what. We're going to make that pretty. So let's go over here. Yeah, it's index.html right up there. And I'm going to save it. I'm doing Control S periodically.
The feed is down. So returns that.
Yeah, they just sent videos out.
Hmm.
There's a good logo looking
It's unfortunate the internet is failing us today.
You're just reviewing anyways.
Yeah, yeah, we're not doing anything much, but
Didn't you see anything new? That's all.
we have it back or no indication yet? No.
He just texted it this time.
Do you all have the feed?
Yeah.
Okay, if they have the feed, it must be
Yeah.
their problem. Yeah. We know it's going through the internet. The good news is,
They're back now.
okay, so we can. This is being recorded successfully, so we can actually save it and share it today. Okay, so when we click on the who voted for what, we want to go call $.ajax. So we've done this, and you know, this looks kind of ugly. It's even ugly for developer standards. I want to put those together. Have you all seen the little thing in Bootstrap that allows you to put buttons together in like a little toolbar? Nope, let's do it. Div. Almost everything in Bootstrap is a div. Class is equal to btn group. Put them both in the same div. Done. That easy. So now I'm going to say, oh, you know, it would be nice to have little icons in there too. There's this thing called Font Awesome.
Wouldn't you take the CDN for this one though?
Yeah. They change this thing every 6 months. All I really want is this. Look at all the cool icons you can have. So if I want to say File, and it allows you to search for your icons. These are all free. Isn't that cool? And you can put those into your buttons. So
Do you have to tag anybody?
oh, it's all open.
It's all-
So I'm going to use that, but let's go free. Okay, they show you the ones that you have to pay for too. Here are all the icons. See that? Now I'm going to go Font Awesome, the old version, like version 4. Because the new version doesn't work as well. Font Awesome, icons, let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. CSS tweaker.
Yeah, they want you to use their,
Down below.
Yeah, that's the one.
this one?
Second one. Second.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, they're bothering me about upgrading. This is exactly the one I want. So let's see if aha, here we go. And they have actually more icons. The reason they're trying to get you to upgrade is because they're going to like a more paid service. So go with the old version. So here is, and you can actually search. You type in stuff. Look at, there's like, got to be hundreds of icons here. Refresh. There, look at that. Retweet, refresh. It's really cool stuff. So what I'm going to do, that's how you get it, but I'm going to cheat for the sake of brevity. I use this almost all the time. So let me go find a project that I've used them in recently. And probably in the web project. This is a C# project. Notice we're just doing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but I have this stuff included into a C# project. And I'm just going to copy and paste it. So, and Bootstrap play. This is going to be CSS. So we have one more file to include at the top. And this one actually comes with some assets. So there's a fonts subdirectory. And how does it want it to be configured? Yeah, that's fine. So getting back to our editor, why did I do that? Why am I making everything confusing? It's because Font Awesome is all worth it. You're going to see it in just a second. So Font Awesome min CSS. It's a CSS file. What do? We're going to have another link. Font Awesome .min.css. Now, I've got, I want to have a little icon over here, like a question mark. Who voted for Pokemon? Class, FA, question. Let's see if that's even one. Most of the time they have an icon for everything. Question hyphen circle, or question. Save that. Up, almost there. It says, what does that mean? It says, I'm trying to go get this content fonts thing, and it can't find it. You probably have seen that in your code already. It's like, what's this little error message? It's saying that the path that Ali guessed at was wrong. And it can tell you about where is it going. It's saying it's trying to find it in that path. So fonts under content. We don't have a content directory. That's because I copied and pasted from another project that did have a content directory. So we're going to modify the minified code here. Content. It's going to go up and down to content. We're going to go, remember the path statement, path stuff we talked about on day one? That's why it's important. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go up and down into fonts.
It's not in fonts, is it?
Yeah.
No, you put it in CSS.
No, look right there.
That's the folder.
Okay, so fonts, we'll see if I'm right. It'll be just a minute. What do developers do all day? They change path statements.
Sublime has a way to select all of them, right?
It does. You want to drive?
No.
There's like 4 or 5 of them. I thought. There we go. Save that, and it's still not readable, but I was able to find and replace. So I save that, refresh, and what do you know? We have a nice little pretty font. Not only do we have one font, we have all of these fonts. Anything you could possibly want in terms of a font, save, there's a floppy, bookmark, you name it, it's out there. Bingo, binoculars. No? Take a look, they're all pretty. There's also the ability, I think, a 2x, I think that's how you say it. You can change the size of them. So, all kinds of things that you can play with here. And how are we doing that? This is not magic. What are these things? These are just classes that Font Awesome min CSS knows how to do something with. They do the magic inside. And how did I get it? I included a library. That's it. I copied and pasted a file. So, let's get back to this. So, try to focus. Who voted? Yeah, we're not doing anything. It's empty. So, it's running right there, but nothing's happening. How do we say, talk to my API in the web? What do you, no? How do we talk to the web? Get just the word GET?
There's other stuff. Ajax?
Yeah, $.ajax. $.ajax. And you don't have to remember this from scratch. Let's go steal it. You know, now that we've seen it once, you don't have to go through the pain. We did that before. Today's for fun. So let's go find somewhere where I've done this before. Tell me I have an Ajax in there. I don't think so. No. Oh, there it is.
The thing's down.
Y'all good or not back there? You're good? We're continuing. Because I can help their internet.
They're back.
So we've got a get. All I did is copy pasted that. And this is who voted for what. It's slightly different. Who voted for what? And this is a get, so we're all good. Somebody explain this statement to me. What's going on here? Crickets. What's going on? Okay, we say we're going to call out to the web. We're going to use the get method, the verb hg get. We're going to call, that's the URL that we want to talk to. And this says, this is what kind of function is this?
Anonymous?
It's an anonymous function. It's also, it starts with a C. Call me back, callback function. Callback function. We're saying, here's the function, call me back when you get success. That's what it's saying. And in this case, it's going to call us back and say, oh, here's your data. Here's what the data looks like. What does that data look like? It's a get, so it's really easy to test. We go up here and press enter, and it's going to show us what's up there. So we get, what is this thing that we get back? It's an array, but generally, what's the term for it? You're in an interview, and you're just like, I know how to speak this in between the front end and the server side of an application. Sounds really smart, doesn't it? JSON. You want to use the technical verbiage. Yeah, JSON. What does JSON stand for? JavaScript Object Notation. What does that mean? It means it's a JavaScript object. It just happens that it's text and you can pass it around like data. That's all it is. So this is JSON, and it happens to be an array of objects. Okay? I know it's array because that little character there, open brace, open square bracket. So I'm going to process this, and we don't have to call this result. It's a callback function. We get to decide whatever we want to call the parameter. We're going to say this is an array of info, whatever you want to call it. I'm just showing you that you can change that. The only thing that you have to have, if you want to get the data back, you need to have a parameter there. It doesn't care what you name it. Yesterday somebody asked the question, how do I make it so that the highest vote count comes first? Well, we can use a JavaScript sort array right there. And if I ran this right now, what's going to happen to our user interface? Absolutely nothing, because we didn't tell it to do anything. We went out and did all the hard work of getting the data from the web. We have it, and we're not doing anything with it to the UI. They'd have to be a developer and look in the console to see that the data came back. Let's help them out. How do we put something? We're going to do a table, right? So we have two things. Somebody tell me what the two things that we're going to show in this table are going to be. Here's the data. The name and the API. Doesn't matter which order, it's up to you. That's the thing that you all are kind of missing. As a developer, and this is one of the hidden secrets about modern technology, developers get to decide the fate, the look and feel, the performance, everything about an application and how it works. Why? Because business people don't really understand what we do. They trust us to do it right. They tell us, do it like this. Okay. We'll go off and do it like this. What does that mean? It means this. It means, are we going to go and call them? Did you want the API name first as the column or the name column? They don't care. It's up to you. This is where, as a developer, you make all the decisions. Now, if it's a big one, it's good to go back and check with them. If it's something they're going to care about, that's when you stop. It's like, what do you want? But the dozens of decisions you make every day, you just got to go through. It's like, what's better? And you make the right decision. And if it's not, you go back and change it. So just get used to that. It's like, that's why I'm going through here, and I'm not even, I almost didn't ask you. I'm going to say name and API, because it doesn't matter. You just got to get used to that. So name and API, we've got this table body, and we need to talk about it from jQuery. We need to give it a name or an ID or something, right? What do we want to call it? Nice body. Okay. So, and we're going to generate the rows. So we don't need that because that's just an empty row. So we're going to put the data right in there. So we're going to go through, let's do a for loop. You've seen this like 10 times now. And they usually look the same. Would it be all right if I just said 12?
Unless the data changes,
Yeah. What happens if the data changes?
then you only have the first 12.
What happens if I have only 6 elements returned?
I think
Because it's 12. If it's larger than 12, it's not going to cover it. It'll be outside of those parameters.
We're going to keep iterating, and it's going to get to 7, and it's like, uh-oh, you've got a null, you've got an undefined, and you're going to have a nasty little error message, and the page is going to stop. So it's best to let your code look at the data and decide how to behave. It's not good to hard code parameters like this, if you can avoid it. So what are we going to do inside this for loop? The whole point of this is when we click on the button, it seems simple, doesn't it? I just want the data to show up. Give me some data. Help me out here. I want to have the rows in my table show what data. We've already done the hard work. We've got the JavaScript object array of, help me put it into a table. A selector, what exactly? Sasha's saying we need to know where to put it. So we just called it nice body. So let's go ahead and have a selector. Targets, rows, location. What's our selector going to be in this case?
The ID for, I don't remember the name of it.
Nice body. Okay. So we have a selector, and that's going to give us our JavaScript jQuery object. And how do we tell it to add a row definition with data?
Append.
Append is one way. You know, let's do it a little bit different today. We've done that like 10 times. Variety is the spice of life. So let's build up our HTML in a string and set it all at once. I get bored doing the same thing all the time. Okay? So how do we make that HTML rows contain the data of all the HTML that we want to put in the table? Come on. That's why we're doing this.
should define what HTML rows is.
Well, HTML rows is just a blank string. We're inside of our loop with our data.
So we didn't append it to it? Or
It's the equivalent of append,
okay.
but we're not doing jQuery. We're just doing a plain old JavaScript variable.
Just set it equal to.
Yeah, we set it equal. You know, HTML rows is equal to, what are we setting it equal to? Is that right?
No.
What does that do?
0, 2.
Yeah, this could be the number. We actually want the index of the array. How do we say that?
Square brackets.
Square bracket. Now we good? That's actually valid JavaScript. What does that do?
Gives us the 0, 1, 2, 3,
That actually declares a new array for each iteration of the loop, and then throws it away. This is,
Then you have to name the array.
yeah, we're going to say, if we're talking about an index, you have to say the name of the array, like that. And then, okay, which index of the array do you want? It's the ith index of the array. So that's not right either, but we're getting there. What is this? What's the problem here?
We need to know what was in that array.
No, the array's fine.
But you want to concatenate it?
Yeah, we want to concatenate it. What does this do as is?
Just one.
Every iteration, it replaces it.
Oh.
So we would get just the last element. We have to say, oh, whatever it was before. So the first time, it's blank. No problem, we replace it. The second time, it only has the first element in there. We need to remember to keep that first element, not throw it away and overwrite it. So we can say HTML rows plus. So this is whatever it was plus whatever it is in this iteration. There's a shorthand for that. Harper showed it to you, I believe.
Plus equals.
Plus equals. I'll leave this because some of you are like, no, don't delete it. This is the longhand. You'll see them both. It's the same as that. Okay? And now, at the end of the for loop, after it's all iterated, 12 times, it's going to say, nice body there. Now, is that going to look good in our table? No. No, no, no. Let's go back and look at our data. Each iteration of the array, we're going to have one of these guys. We have to talk about the properties. More specifically, we're creating an HTML row, right? So we need to take the variables, API name and voter name, we need to put it into a TR tag. So this is close, but we're not building a table row. How do you say table row? Help me out. Yeah, TR. And how do you say a cell in the table row? TD. And how do you say, let's do it without the double quote, single quote thing for a minute. Let's pretend this is going to work. So what property of this array of info do we need to put into our first one? Let's go back and look and decide. We said name and then API. Name and API. So let's go back over to our data. Name, we mean voter name, don't we? So we can copy voter name. There are two ways to say this. This is very confusing to look at. You can say double quote property name, or I so much like this better. It's easier to look at. Dot voter name. When do you have to do the double quote version? When you have a space in your name or a special character in your name. Bless you. Another reason why I don't like spaces. It makes my code more complex. So, I know this is bothering you. It should bother you right now. It's like, oh, you didn't stop your string and start it again. Yeah, we're going to come back and do that. Let's do it without the string delimiters for just a minute. Let's pretend that that's automatically going to fix itself. Let's just write the HTML. Does everyone understand end of cell, start of cell, end of row? What goes in the second cell here? API underscore name, right? What happens if you misspell the property name? What does it give you instead? No. There's a special keyword. Undefined. It says, you know, it's valid what you're saying, but I don't know what you're talking about. There's no such property. Okay, so now, this, if we do it like this, let's see what happens. You think we're going to get lucky and it's going to look good? You never know. No, we didn't get lucky. But we do have a nice, pretty looking table. Not too pretty. That one's kind of encroaching. Why is all that green? There we go. You know, I bet you on the Bootstrap site, they can tell us how to make tables really pretty. And what is it? Content, tables. Okay, so let's go steal some ideas. Oh, there's a black one. I want that one. Table hyphen dark. Done. What else can we do that's fun? Yeah, complex stuff. Striped, we already did that. Bordered. Borderless. They get really pedantic. Give me the cool stuff. Small table, there we go. Table SM, I want that. Okay, let's see if that's any better. Well, first let's go back and fix our JavaScript. So we did all the hard work, we got some data, but we didn't do our stuff here, mostly because we're afraid of the double quote, single quote thing. How do we make that work? Can I do this? What's wrong with that?
It's a string.
It has to be matching.
I love it. Y'all are starting to think like developers. Like, no, Allie, you're bothering me. It hurts when somebody does this, doesn't it? You have to match. It's got to be double, double, single, single. Otherwise, it doesn't know what we're talking about. Okay, so we fixed the first cell. We haven't fixed the second cell. Let's do the same thing. What does that plus sign mean? Does that mean I'm adding stuff together or no? What does that mean here? Concatenation. This is old hat to y'all. I'm trying to show you that you know a whole lot more than you think you do. There we go. You know, I only care about those culprits that voted for Pokemon or allegedly voted for Pokemon. How do we filter to just the Pokemon people? You know, let's do it with jQuery. We've got our data. Let's have a little button in our top, a really small button that says Pokemon only. So in our table header, let's add another TH. And we're going to have a little button in here. Let's make it, what color do we want the button?
Yellow.
Yellow. So what's in Bootstrap? I think it's warning.
Warning is red. Danger is red.
It's kind of orange. Yeah, danger is red. So I bet you they don't have an icon for Pokemon. Let's see if they have an icon for Pokemon. No, no Pokemon. But I'm sure we can find a Pokemon image on the web. There we go. Save image as. So we're going to throw it into, you know, it's not CSS or fonts or JS. Let's create a new folder. Images.
I watched Digimon. Digimon all the way.
You can like both.
Okay. So now how do we make a Pokemon image show up in our button? Is that even possible? You know this stuff. src is equal to. Now, we need to know where it is. And this is what gets people a little bit confused sometimes. It's in a subdirectory, images, Pokemon, and it's going to be enormous unless we tell it to be small.
Leave it first.
Leave it first. You want to see how big it is? Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see it break our page. There it is. That's one hefty Pokemon. So how do we shrink it down to a reasonable size?
Did you make it image thumbnail? Or responses?
I'm sure they got a class for it too.
Yeah, let's go look at Bootstrap. That's what we're supposed to be doing here, not having fun. So let's go have
And then it would just
images.
I don't know if it resizes it
fit the with
from the
the thing.
first one.
You could also set the button
You need to turn
background.
by
I know if you would drag in
to,
this random shit with the response.
You could set the button background to the image.
Could, but it's going to show me a little piece of it.
Thumbnail should work.
Yeah, thumbnail.
I don't think it's actually going to be small enough, but we'll try. IMG fluid and IMG, yeah, I think they expect like normal sized images, not tiny ones. So let's try it. So how do we try it? Class. That's how you interact with Bootstrap. So let's go do that. That's a little bit better, but it's still enormous. Yeah, I think we're actually going to have to do style.
There's image responsive.
You want to try image responsive? IMG responsive?
I don't know if that resizes it completely, but should work.
like that.
Yeah. That's for the whole wood.
Well, that's how you, that's actually good. It's like throw things at it. Doesn't work, try something else. As a developer, don't be afraid to break things. You can always fix it. Snap of the fingers, no problem. So style, let's, like I said earlier, choose a width or a height. Let me show you what it looks like if we mangle Pokemon. Width, 60 pixels. Height, 30 pixels. Now let's make it 100. Yeah, so that, you ever seen somebody who put together the website themselves in their basement and they didn't really know what they're doing? There are always telltale signs. It's when they skew their images, like no. You don't specify width and height, because if you do, if it's not exactly the same as what the image wants to be, I mean, we'll make them even skinnier. Let's put them on a diet. So width is 30. There we go. So you don't want to skew your images unless that's really your intent. So what you should do is just specify width or height. Let the other one naturally flow. There you go. It's still big, but it's reasonable. So it doesn't do anything. Let's actually change that to be filter to Pokemon only. Let's make it so that that button does something. Now, put your developer hat back on. How do we make it so that button does something?
Give it an ID.
Yeah.
You can also do on click. And then a normal function.
Yep. So let's say Pokemon filter. And how do we make jQuery call some code so we can actually filter? First of all, what am I doing here? Let me take a step back and show you what we've got working so far. So when I click that, it's going to fill this with a list of all of the people who voted for whatever. GitHub, Twilio. And then there's the people down here that voted for Pokemon.
So,
I wanted to filter this existing table. So we're going to learn something slightly new in jQuery to be able to do that.
so here, you kind of want to change who voted for Pokemon to who voted for what. Then, the Pokemon to filter out. Instead of on your left, you have who voted for Pokemon. It shows everything right now.
Yeah, it should be who voted for what. I should change that text. Let's go do that. So you're right. We changed halfway through. Who voted for what? Good. But also we want that Pokemon button to filter the existing table, which is something new. That is something that you do often with jQuery. So you need to learn how to do this. So what's the name of the button or the ID of the button? It's the Pokemon filter. What's the event we want? Click event. And when we click that Pokemon filter, let's think this through. What do we want it to do? We want to look at the data in the table. By the way, there are 3 columns now in each row. To make it not look funny, I'm going to add another blank column here just so it matches. But when we click the Pokemon filter, we're going to loop through every row, and we're going to see what is in the second column. How do we do that? So we click the button. How do we talk about that table? Well, we have the table up here, don't we? It's nice body. Let's do that same thing here. So it's nice body. What are the elements in the nice body that we're going to loop through? HTML things. The rows. How do we say elements inside of another element? Space. There you go. Dot each. I'm going to explain this in just a second. TD. Just as when you thought you were getting a handle on jQuery. Okay. Let's look at my intent because I have no clue if this is going to work or not. Who can walk us through what I'm trying to do here?
Going through each table row and nice body table.
Yep, I'm saying find the nice body and then look for each row, and that's going to give us an array because there's more than one. This is a jQuery function that says for each of the items in your array, do this. And I think it's the index and the value. That's why I called it I and V. Let's go look it up. We don't have to do this from memory. jQuery.each. This is probably Harper saying, oh, here's the syntax. Okay. .each, $.each. It's actually not, that's not the one. This is $.each, which works slightly differently. But it's going to have the same signature. Index and value. So let's go back over here, because I really want to make sure you understand that. So index and value. Each iteration, it's going to say, if this, what does this mean in this case? This is the current context.
So it's what you first called solution. This case would be the nice body.
That's the confusing thing about this. If I say this here, that's talking about Pokemon filter button. Inside of this TR, it's talking about the TR. It's context. So this find, so within the TR, let's find the TD EQ. That means a pseudo selector that says, give me 0 based. This is the 0th, and this is the first. The first TD, actually the second TD with index of 1 though, 0 based, and get its HTML, which is going to be the word Pokemon, I believe. It has to be exact. Okay. If it's not Pokemon, add a class to the row hide. Hide is a bootstrap class that says display none. Now, once again, I'm not sure if that still exists in version 4. We'll find out in about 10 seconds. So I'm going to refresh the page. Who voted for what? Pokemon only, and I did something wrong. No errors. So how do we debug this? This is everyday developer stuff. How do we figure out what I did wrong? Console.logs. Let's go see. Did we get into our TRs? Or, you know, this is the old school way. Let's go do it with an interactive debugger. So, inside of here, we've got our code in the page, and when we click on there, it's going to go through that, and it should run for each of the TR tags inside of our nice body. So, let's try this again. So it's getting there. So we've got some of it right. The V is the tr.hide. Ah, that's told me exactly what's going on. The hide class no longer exists in Bootstrap 4. Thank you very much, Bootstrap, for rewriting everything. So what happened to my hide class in Bootstrap 4? And this is like the 10,000th question of the same. Yeah. Somebody else is complaining about, I'm sure, I'm not the first developer to complain about the same thing. They make everything a little bit different every time. Hidden.
Could you instead just find Bootstrap 4 and just download that?
Bootstrap 3, yeah. 3.
You really could.
You could, yeah. We could use Bootstrap 3, but we'd be delaying the inevitable. This is another thing you have to learn about technology. This came out like 3 or 4 months ago. We have not used this in a production live project, ever. We use Bootstrap 3 because that's what's been out for 2 or 3 years. We talked about this a couple days ago, and I actually told Brianna, you know, I'm not sure if we're going to do Bootstrap 4 or Bootstrap 3, but you know, if we don't do it now, we're going to have to do it in 2 or 3 months anyway. Let's just do it, you know? It's going to be similar enough. And every time you upgrade, it's like, okay, what did they do with my favorite classes? And how do you figure it out? It looks like they probably call it hidden now. Let's see if that works, and if not, we'll try something else. But another thing I'm trying to convey here, don't be afraid to break things. I mean, I'm a supposed professional. I'm breaking things left and right. Now, refresh. Okay. Hidden's not it.
So like a hidden hub or something like that?
You know, if we don't find it in a minute, I'm going to do it the old school CSS way. And I know that's going to work. Hidden, yeah, well, jQuery.hide or, yeah, so they made it. They gave you like 20 different classes now. Forget that. Not going to do that. Let's do hide. There we go.
Oh.
Now, so we have the culprits on our screen now.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
If you did not vote for Pokemon, you need to find the hacker in the class and ask him or her why they voted on your behalf. Questions? Okay. So, this is context. It means the last jQuery selector that you're inside of, you're telling jQuery the last one that you're in, that's the one I'm talking about. So in this case, we're doing an iteration over each of the rows in our tBody, nice body. We're talking about one tr. It's very much like this for loop here, except this is jQuery saying, I'm going to call you once for each of the iterations. This is just another way. Think of it like a for loop. Does everyone understand what in the world this is? When you're inside of a context, jQuery has a find method. This allows you to look down inside of your children and say, find this. It's very much like in CSS where elements, space, something inside. This is like you're at that element at the top and you're looking down into anything inside of there. And you can write whatever selector you want. In this case, I'm saying inside the TR, look at my TDs, find the second one. Why does this mean 2? Because the EQ pseudo-selector starts at 0. So if I said 0, it would be the first one. Okay.
Can you repeat that last part?
Yeah. So actually, this is... I'm thinking about how I do this other than with this, to say it a different way. But I think inside of .each, it's you could do .v, because it gives you this. This is like the iterated value. But it's cleaner to actually say this. It means the current iterated value, the TR in this case, that we're iterating over, we're saying we are that TR. Now look inside of the TR HTML and decide, what am I looking for? So we're inside of this TR right there. We're looking down and we're trying to find the word Pokemon. And we decided the API name, that's going to be in the second cell. So TD, that first one in the list, is going to be TD0 because it's zero-based array. The second one is going to be 1, and if we had 4, it'd be 2, 3.
Yeah.
0, 1, 2, 3.
Got it.
And that's what this means. It means give me the second one. That's not the easiest. You know what would be cleaner? Is if we just gave this class. That would be so much better. Let's do that. It's so much easier. API name. So instead of EQ1, you can say that now. It's so much easier to look at. Does everyone understand what I did there? So this is the data that we're generating into the table. And I'm saying, you know, I want to talk about that later, so let's give it a class, API-name. And later on, why doesn't it find all of them here? Because when you say this, and this means the TR, we're saying look inside of this TR. It's only going to find the one per row. And it's the row that you're in right now. How is that working? Because we're inside of a .each. So this is another thing that you can do with the jQuery selector. I lied a little bit when I said we're not going to cover anything new. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. My bad. Let's get back to Bootstrap. You know, one of my favorite things in Bootstrap is a modal. And I always have to copy and paste it because it's like this much HTML and JavaScript. So it's like it's HTML and CSS. I just copy and paste it. I change what I want, and we're good. Then I just replace the text. So let's do that same thing. Let's go over and find the Bootstrap modal. Now, watch the change completely for version 4. Components, modal. Modal, who caught what a modal is?
It's like a
pop-up?
pop-up.
It's a pop-up. There's one right there. So let's do a very simple one. I'm going to copy and paste. That's one of the great things about this documentation site. You go, see what you want, copy and paste the HTML, you're home free. I'm going to paste this right into my page, right here at the bottom. I don't have to worry about where, because modals are going to be invisible by default. If you tell it to be. Actually, I think I used to say hide. And they took that away. So we'll find out if it's going to be visible or not. Let's see. And you know, we have Font Awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's do a little Font Awesome thing. FA, that's the little Font Awesome prefix for the class. FA mail, email. I bet you it's email. Font Awesome icons. Okay, let's go find email. It's probably just mail. Envelope. Envelope. Notice I'm just putting it in an I. What is I in traditional HTML? It means italic. We're abusing an old school HTML tag that nobody uses anymore. How would you do italic now?
Yeah.
That's like focus, give it emphasis.
Just italic?
With CSS, with the style.
CSS,
Yeah,
italic.
yeah. You just do font style italic. So we don't use the I tag, but old school version 3 or version 2 of HTML, they had a tag that meant italic. But we're hijacking it. So save that. Click here to send me. Now, it's not going to show up. I bet you I have to, let's go over and look at this. Modal. There we go. This is the one we want. Fade. We want to have a nice little fade in. And little secret, you don't need all these little tags. It helps, but to make it work, you don't. Let's see. Modal, dialog, modal, fade. Now when you click, how do we make it pop up? They have all of that JavaScript automatically wired up for you, so you don't actually have to write a thing. So all we need to do is put a button in here. Now let's put it on our normal right here. You see I shamelessly copied and pasted that whole thing. Access, primary, let's give it a danger. Let's make it red. And let's change, what is that, do you think? It's probably specifying an ID. It's a half sign. Remember, you get used to certain conventions. Half sign in HTML, it means ID. So let's give it an ID. Let's jump back over here. Copy from here. Div class. Yep, ID. On the top level. And this is going to be, really? And we say really. And okay. So, one of the things you see I'm doing, I'm going back and forth. I'm writing code, I'm going to the browser. Writing code, going to the browser. Now this is way too big. I don't know what's going on there. Let's change the layout so this is smaller. How do we do that in Bootstrap?
Back to the grid.
Yeah, back to the grid. We've got a container, we've got a row. We initially said 4, and then this call doesn't have anything on it. What does that mean? It means the rest. And we have how many columns? 12. So if we want it to be 2/3 and 1/3, how do we say that?
Put 8 there.
Yeah, put 8 here, and then the rest will be like 4. Or if we want to be explicit, we could say 4. Same thing. It's that easy. Now, we're wasting a whole bunch of space here. Let's make these buttons smaller. Maybe smush them a little bit. How do we do that? Buttons, you can say, by default, you have a normal size. You can say SM for small. You can say BTN XS for extra small. Let's see what that looks like. Because they're in the same group, I think it's the first one's probably going to win. Yeah, the first one on the list is probably the one it cares about. An or. Huh. My bad.
It might be because of the text. You could wrap the text.
Or we'll give it smaller. It looks
Yeah, it would make it smaller.
What about the icon?
Maybe they took away excess. Once again, sorry, because let's go look at the buttons. They probably took away that class. BTN, give me a small button. Come on. Oh, those are nice. I'm going to do that instead. That's how I learn. You throw it in there one time. Oh, I did that one time. Here we go. SM. They took away XS. That's why. It doesn't exist anymore. XS used to mean extra small. Forget I said that. It's SM now.
I get it.
There we go. So that's a little bit more room. That's nice. I like that. That's reason enough to upgrade to version 4. So click on that. Let's make sure our table still works. Oh, let's make that button smaller too. How do we say that? BTN SM. Just add the class. XS didn't work because it doesn't exist. There we go. Filter. Oh, check with email. Isn't that nice? And here's a little email icon. By the way, modals are nice because you can press escape, it'll go away. Click anywhere else, it'll go away. Close, it'll go away. If you want something that moves around, like a little Windows window, there's another library that I'm not going to go through. I'm just going to let you go and play with it. jQuery UI. jQuery is the code part that allows you to do the hardcore gluing of front-end web applications. But there are all these other components that you get for free with jQuery UI. Like here's an accordion. Here's an autocomplete, type ahead. Date picker. This is still my favorite date picker. It's like, wow. To have to code that, that would take me a month. Dialogue. Real dialogue.
This is another library we could download and reference.
Copy and paste 2 files, JavaScript and CSS, and voila, you look like a genius. Progress bar. The documentation for this is not quite as good, and they're not quite as nice as Bootstrap, but some of the things are different. For instance, sortable. Some of the things, you ever seen where you can drag and drop things? jQuery UI has that. You have a draggable and a droppable. And I don't know where they stash them now. Aha, draggable and droppable right up at the top. So this is all JavaScript. Dragging things around, like Windows application style. Droppable. Drag and drop.
If you combine the two, they look good.
This one.
Sortable. This is if you have a sortable list, and you've seen this. This is a really nice feature in applications.
Whatever comes up.
Oh.
Isn't that nice? You write no code to have that. It's all there for you. All you have to do, what do we have to do to include jQuery UI? You download it, you put it in a folder, you put a couple tags at the top of your page that look almost exactly like this, and you're good. Then it's just, oh, how do I use it again? You go here, and they give you the code. It couldn't be easier. Look at it, view source. Okay. Oh, what do you know? You need jQuery to be able to use this. So we got jQuery, we're good. Now it's a matter of, what do you really do? Oh, one line of code, sortable. What is that? It's an ID. You give it a div with an ID, and you say sortable, and it does all the rest for you. Isn't that amazing? It's there for you. That's all the code. Look how small it is. So what's the point of this lesson? It's that you have enough skills to go out and make use of all these other libraries. I'm not going to be able to teach you, nor would I want to teach you, all the fun things you can do with your skills. I've taught you the ability to pick up that hammer or pick up that wrench and go find a new one and show me the cool stuff that's out there that I don't even know about because I'm an old man. Come back, show me the cool stuff because I want to make use of it. So jQuery UI, we've used this for years. This is getting a little older. I'm sure there's a newer, cooler one out there that I don't know about. How do you get started with it? There's a download. What do you know? You download that. They have a nice little package manager where you can, they can theme it too. That's jQuery UI, is a little bit different. They're not Twitter, so they don't have a very opinionated way about these are the color schemes you must use. jQuery UI, you can choose your own color schemes. And it'll say, okay, how do you want your site to look, kind of? And then you can override from there. And this gives you an interactive working, because it's all in the UI, version of your colors. jQuery UI is very cool stuff. They have their own icons. I already taught you about Font Awesome. Oh, one last thing, and that'll let you go play. I don't want to usurp your playtime. Toaster. What does this thing do? Did you all take a look at it the other day?
Alerts.
It's alerts. So let's go see a very quick example on how to use that with like one line of code. Okay.
There's demos around the page. Down, I think.
Okay. Just toaster. When do you want this to pop up? How about after we get the list of who voted for what?
There's Harper's offering to do a little show and tell.
Of what?
Built a little search engine with the Giphy?
Giphy.
Giphy. Okay. API.
That's right, Bal. Sorry.
Well, it's with it's with a PH. So.
Chop masala is spicy.
One line of code.
Yeah. Sorry.
So this is going to happen let's do this. Look at that. Get that for free. And it's got like 1,000 different options because they focused all their efforts on making a very nice little pop-up. How much better is that than Alert? And we got that with one line of code and downloading and including one line. It's that easy. Why don't we take a break until 3 o'clock, and then Harper, I think, wants to do the web API with Giphy. So per Kirsty's suggestion, we're going to be dictators. We're not going to make it a democracy, and we're going to throw out all of the ballots. So,
Blame her.
so Pokemon is not going to be the winner. I'm sorry. Hear that, hacker, whoever you are. Let's take a break.